Very welcome everyone to this webinar related to the Eclipse Arrowhead. Eclipse Arrowhead is an open source project for which I'm the project leader, and in my everyday life I'm a professor at the Luleå University of Technology, and my name is Delsing. Just to remind you all, we're going to record this, and so everyone knows that this is the case. The Eclipse Arrowhead project comes out of a number of EU projects and with some very interesting results. And when we have communicated those results to a lot of people around Europe, Sweden, the globe, there is a number of companies saying, how can we benefit from this? Can we learn? And can we understand what's going on? This is the basis for why this webinar is set up. And we're here going to discuss this together with some industrial people that have tried, are trying, are using. But first of all, I would like to introduce you to the scope of Eclipse Arrowhead. We're working with how to integrate and to build digitalization and automation, and in particular in industrial environments, where we want to connect operational technology with the new IT technologies. And this is not a simple task. We're probably going to hear that later on today. We've been running a few projects. The latest project is a project named Arrowhead Tools. And we set out with some very interesting objectives. We said that we would like to, and we are aiming to reduce the cost of engineering for automation and digitalization solutions by 20 to 50%. And here's the results.
The Arrowhead Tools project set out to build a tool that could substantially reduce engineering costs and time for digitalization and automation solutions. And we have succeeded to show exceptional savings of 30 to 95%. This is verified and validated by more than 25 industrial use cases from semiconductor, automotive, mining, buildings, logistics, maintenance, and smart cities. Concrete realization in the industry is now supported by the commercial ecosystem of over 20 European companies. So how did we succeed? Our technology is provided open source as Eclipse Arrowhead. It's free to use and consists of more than 25 basic building blocks and engineering procedures and tools, providing out-of-the-box security, flexibility, and scalability, enabling efficient solution integration supported by established training and support channels. The released technology is IPR checked by Eclipse Foundation. Our continuous mission is to further simplify usage and improve robustness. So let's come together to accelerate the journey toward a more digital and greener future. Eclipse Arrowhead, powering Industry 4.0 and beyond.
Say more than excellent. They are kind of many times unbelievable, but it also means that we see that this is now building some type of impact in the industry where people say, okay, can we use this? And we're going to have a dialogue here with three guys. So first of all, we have Markus from Boliden. He's IT manager of automation at the Boliden Mines company. So we're welcome. Then we have Fredrik Blomstedt. He's working with a Sinetiq company, a company working with high-end software solutions, and you are the chief architect at Sinetiq. And finally, we have Jens Eliasson. He's the managing director of his own company, Thingwave, who have a lot of IoT and system of system solutions, in particular for the mining industry. You're all very welcome here. And we'll see how we can continue this dialogue as of today. So first, I would like to turn to Markus. You're an end user.
Sure.
And you're buying these type of technologies, and you have tried it out. And could you just introduce us a little bit? What have you done in the respect of using technologies, open source technologies, and in particular the Eclipse Arrowhead technologies related to service-oriented architecture, microservices? Well, we should stay away from all this technology, but what have you done?
Oh, we have done a lot. Maybe we scope it down a bit to what we have done in the Arrowhead Tools project as well, and how it relates. And we went in there with a goal to look at the technology and try out, of course, because that's what we want to do: look for innovation and increase the speed in our digitalization. And so that's one part. The other part is it's not only look at technology, but also about how can we improve our processes. So we talk about the engineering process and those type of topics. And then third, also about the networking. I think we have the network here as well, but also as part of the project, we had great interaction, and that has been very good. But also, maybe more important, it's also to move the needle a bit in our journey towards really embracing the Industry 4.0 topics, and step by step, then turn a bit around the rocks that we have and move it a little bit more. When it comes to exploring the technology, but also actually implementing it. And that part, as we talked before many times, is quite difficult. So we have looked at, particularly at how data and data security works and how we can optimize that in our environment. But we're also looking heavily in how to optimize how we integrate our machine data and sensor data into all other systems, and how can we use that to optimize our production, and also further support automation. So that's the main focus. There's a lot of technology things that we look into, and we also tried and run with the Arrowhead tools. But we have many different things that we work on, so to say.
But yeah, the ambition we set forth with here 20 to 50%. What were you thinking about that when we started?
Good question. I think when I first saw it, I said, "Oh, are we not kind of over-promising?" It's always better under-promise and then over-deliver. But when we looked at the possibilities there, and we realized that, and along the project, that actually it's not a big problem. But you can't just take the technology. What I think the biggest learning we also had is use technology, but also look at when you change capabilities, always on people, process, and technology. So if you take the entire aspect and look at how we can improve the business value, then it's quite easy. And you can not only have an increase, but also these drastic results that we have here. And I think that's similar to the other companies that participated. So for us, really looking at our processes and in quite maybe look in a different way at it, and use technology then to implement improvements. And at concrete example, we could reduce the planning for our mine in one particular area, reduce the process from weeks and manual work, a lot of security issues, to basically instant data availability. And that's not something you do, but just continuing the way you do before.
Sure. Can you comment? I guess that you have got reactions within Boliden from your colleagues on the results you have achieved.
Yes.
Do they believe you really, or?
I believe yes. I'd say results were they surprised. I would have to say yes and no. Somehow yes, because the results, if you have it on paper, it's something different. So when you look at it, and especially look back at back from where we started, then of course it's a great improvement. And sometimes you just move on and look at the next thing, but then if you recap and actually show, like we also did in the project, then has a much better impact. But also no, because a lot of people see the potential and they know that it's there, but then it's also the difficulty is how to actually unlock it. So that's why it's a bit of a yes and no.
Yeah. How are you going about this, unlocking the results that you?
It's a good question. There's many different layers to it. I think what's very important is to have a pull, and that's a technology pull, more or less. You have new technology, you have to test it, we have to show what's possible. But on the other hand, when it comes closer to production, and the life cycle in our industry is not super fast. So you have to like carefully bring in new thinking, new architecture, and new tools as well. But then not more from a technology perspective, so technology led primarily, because then we will hit the block, as in our experience. But more make it purpose led or business driven, because then we can pull in the technology that we have carefully prepared for as well. It's a good question. There's we have ongoing discussions around that, and it's a hot topic, I think, and it's all around how can we set up an ecosystem that works, that is a win-win for all of us. If you talk about our machine vendors and how they bring innovation and machines in our mine, but also our needs to optimize our production and optimize our automation, and there's two interests that come together, and the data usage has been quite interesting and a quite hot topic in that area. So what we have to do is find a way, and also an architecture and interoperability that works for all of us, and that needs some alignment and some adjustment. And it's not only technology. I think that in the end will be the easiest part, but also around contracts and interests and find a way to implement in a proper way. So it's a very interesting topic. And
since you very much rely on your suppliers of technology, you're experts in the mining part, but you need a lot of technology. Do you also see that? Is there a possibility that you actually can buy competence in this area on the market with this competence on this new technology?
So yes, but not so much with the it's very delimited group that actually has the foresight when it comes to looking 5-10 years ahead. I think that's where we have a bit of a gap, and that's also because there are short-term and mid-term financial interests and how to solve things. But there's now with this architecture, I believe that this is the future, but it needs to be tackled from all different angles, and I think there's a gap in terms of consultancy and also understanding. It's not you have to understand also, or you have to know what to ask for as well.
Clear, but you are now starting to ask for these newer things, and
absolutely,
you're probably moving it into your procurement documents and so on. And it's very clear, new technology, there is a lot of things that need to match for industry to actually adopt it. And the point here with, can we actually buy competence in the market? And yeah, we do have this competence here at the table here. So Fredrik, you are one of those that actually are selling this type of architectural thinking to industry right now.
Yes.
And you've been very successful with these type of things. I know you have, for example, been completing a very successful project with Scania.
That's correct. Yeah, I can tell you a little bit about that. Actually, it started back in 2018. So Scania saw that, okay, we need to be better regarding integrations, try to follow this digitalization journey and fulfill automation completely on the shop floor. So actually, we started to put forward architecture from the Arrowhead framework, and told the people in Södertälje that were responsible for the complete production units. And they have seen during the last 10 years that, okay, it's really hard to fulfill integrations and reuse it all over the different production units on each site in the world. So they come up with, okay, please, let's try this in the side member production up in Luleå. So we started this project in 2018 and did the implementation for about 1 year and had it in production 2019, and it has been running since then, so in 3.5 years now.
So it's an MES system.
Yeah, it's an integration between ERP, MES, and SCADA, but primarily a MES system. Yeah. So it's controlling production at the shop floor.
Right in the middle of their core production.
Yes, and it's really high requirements regarding performance and so on, and controlling machines.
Yeah. What was the key argument that you think actually convinced Scania in the end for this?
Yeah, actually, they have tried to monolithical approach back in 2012 and started the project and saw that the cost was just increasing, and it got more and more complex and really hard to maintain and govern. So they felt that, okay, we need to tackle this problem in some other direction. And I mean, we have been involved in the Arrowhead project since 2013. So we say, okay, we might have a really strong way to tackle this, and provided just a brief architecture and said, okay, can we try this one? And had the guys from Södertälje up in Luleå and give them a demonstration and so on. And they say, okay, it's quite, the side member production can be quite separated, so let's try it out. And it was really, really successful. Mm-hmm. So we have some figures as well regarding the production. Mm-hmm. So when we started the production, the first 2 weeks, we had actually 3 new daily records. So we went from 600 to 780 side members a day. So it was a huge performance regarding production. So it's really possible to create more trucks. And I actually got the figures from the stop times yesterday during the time period from to New Year. And it has been 45 stop hours since start in August 2019.
So 45 hours in 3.5 years.
Yeah, and it's, I mean, then we run 3 shifts a day. Mm-hmm.
So Markus, you're running a process industry, another 24/7, 365. These numbers, 45 hours in 3.5 years, because of, is that good or bad?
It's very good, I have to say. Of course, it's a different type of industry.
Yeah.
But of course, very good.
Yeah, I mean, they are really, really happy. It was, as you said, a really successful project. So,
which means that the new technology you introduced here actually is stable for industrial use.
Yeah, absolutely. And we have combined different technologies as well, and using the framework from Arrowhead regarding architecture and so on. So it's loosely coupled and future-proof. So it's a really strong player in the digitalization journey. So, yeah.
If you have been building software systems for many years, I know, but can you give any estimates on how much time did you spend to use this microservice approach compared to if you should have built this as a monolith?
I can give some numbers. Actually, it's of course hard to answer exactly, but when we have the knowledge regarding how to build smaller components and have integrations between those components and the separated capabilities. For example, when we had the go live planning, we saw that we have forgot a measurement system in production. Oh, okay, we need to integrate this and we need to do it fast. And then we had an estimation of 240 hours to do this. And when we started to do the work, we could reuse 3 different services. So we ended up in 80 hours of development. And within 100 hours, we had it in production, up and running, without affecting the already running systems. So, and that was also a proof that we have chosen the right way to go, because this was one of the requirements. Can it be future-proof? Can we add systems when we have a new requirement and a new need? So it was really successful as well.
It means that you did cut off more than 50% of your estimated time.
Yeah.
It's very interesting, and that matches the numbers that we saw earlier here very well. So very interesting to hear that this has really happened in a commercial project as well.
Yeah, but what we also see is maybe more important thing, but I don't have any figures on that one. But actually, when we have a lot of integration, everything will be more and more complex. How do we govern our integrations? And we see that the Arrowhead concept actually supports us how to do this, how to have a really strict discipline and how to have control of our integrations. And that's really, really important. And I think I cannot imagine the amount of money that we reduce when we have this approach. So it's really nice.
So if I kind of summarize what you say is that, yes, you have a new technology, which is really at least as robust or even maybe better than the old ones, but it's also cost less to develop.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, that's right.
No, it's kind of is that really true? Can this really happen? There's normally not a free lunch, but apparently it seems that we start to have these type of results.
Yeah, but we see also, sorry to adding this, but I think it's important. I mean, the tricky part is how do we do integrations? I mean, everyone see that the community working with a lot of integrations. But when we start to do the integration, how should we govern them? How can we do this in a good way? And often you start to have some integration engine and you get dependent on that integration engine. And you get stuck in your legacy shoes when you aim for future solutions. So when you should do really nice future solutions, you see, okay, we have this legacy. So we need to consider that. And the Arrowhead framework actually provides the possibility to be technology independent and product independent. So it's really nice.
It seems that you hook on to that comment, Markus.
Yeah, I shared the experience, I guess. Just to comment on that, I think yes, the legacy part plays a large role. There's a cost of change, both in terms of technology, but also the willingness to change, and that has quite an impact.
Yeah,
but then,
absolutely.
of course, if you do, you have the effects on cost and flexibility.
I would like to comment on that, because what we have seen is, yes, it saves time, but it's not only that. Because if you have like a monolithic solution, and let's say we want to do a quick demo that we always end up doing, if it would take 3 to 4 weeks to actually make a custom visualization for a particular demo, that wouldn't happen. You wouldn't touch the core software or platform just to make a 1 hour demo. But with Arrowhead, we can actually have a secure way of tapping into all the data stream that we generate internally. And we can write the new proof of concept software in a day or two to feed in on that data stream. And we can make a completely custom demo or visualization without even touching a single line of code of the core system. So it saves time. It also enables us to be very agile and rapid when it comes to doing demos and shows and all that we need to do to demonstrate our solutions.
It's cool to hear. I just want to reach out to you guys on the web and saying that feel free to put questions in the chat. We are here to discuss, but not only between the 4 of us here, but we are very, very glad to take questions from the web. So type it in the chat, and I will try to capture that and bring that to the table here. So yes, there we have one technology supplier, but it's probably not many enough for Markus to be really happy. Then we have Thingwave and Jens Eliasson. You are really not a software consultant, but you have your own products and you have your own solutions, which might be a single part into what a small piece into what Boliden would like to see. And you always say that mining is an interesting area, but you have a range of products there, and what do you think are the most attractive features? I know you have installed these things at a number of places, but what is the most attractive features to your customers that actually is the key selling points, which brings you into the market?
Well, for us, I would say the most important feature is the loosely coupled architecture. I don't think we have actually done a single delivery without some sort of customization. There's always some sort of integration platform. There's always some system that needs to receive the data that we generate. And again, if we would need to do changes to our core platform, it increases exponentially the number of connectors and protocols and the data models and all that. So that would be very slow and time consuming. And as a small company, we cannot afford to do that. But by having Arrowhead integrated as a core part of the platform, That means we can actually do at runtime orchestration and say, okay, we start up a new microservice and we have that one tap into the data stream of a particular set of devices or data, and then we can do whatever we want with that one without touching the code base of the Thingwave platform. So it allows us, if the customer asks, can you integrate with X platform? We say yes, because we don't need to touch every single line of code. We just touch a little bit, and it's very quick.
I saw this summer that you announced together with an interesting company, Epiroc, one of the world leader of underground mining technology, a joint venture or a partnership. So they are marketing your stuff globally.
Yep, that's correct. So I think we have stirred up some dust when it comes to what we call mining 4.0, where we take IoT or industrial IoT into the mining domain. We have a lot of different sensor solutions where we can collect many types of data, and we make sure the systems work in that harsh environment. They are very self-sustained, because going to a mine to do maintenance takes a lot of time and lots of effort. So we want to have them standalone, robust, and just feeding data day in and day out.
Could you comment on how did you manage to convince Epiroc to actually go in partnership with you? What was the key selling points there again?
We actually started talking in an R&D project based around Arrowhead called SMIG. So I think that's where we really got the good connection with the digitalization people of Epiroc, and they knew what we've been doing since we started the company. So it was kind of a good merger there.
Was there so you learned to know each other from a kind of a technology base?
Yeah.
But I guess there were some managers above the engineers that actually had to say yes as well.
Yes, so like I said, we are a fairly small company, but we do a lot of demos, we do a lot of prototypes. We're very active when it comes to showing the potential of what we can do with IoT. Just collecting data, even if it's a kilometer underground, we make the data available in some visualization, or as a service, a third-party users can access that data, so they don't need to go into the mine to see, for example, if there are deformations in a wall. They can actually see that on an app or in some software. So I asked, actually, I did the presentation for Ericsson Research in Gothenburg this summer. So I presented what we do, that we have all kinds of sensors and all kinds of platforms. And they asked us, so how many are you in the company? I told them, guess. And they said, well, we think around 60. I was like, no, we're like 9. So we are really, really agile. And we can be that because we work with good tools and platforms that allows us to actually very quickly, if somebody comes with an idea, can we test this? And we're like, yeah, we can do that. You don't need to spend weeks and weeks of just slowly working.
And your products, they actually are running the Arrowhead framework, the Eclipse Arrowhead architecture, but also the reference implementation of that architecture. So you're using that open source code.
So we are running the framework on each gateway. So again, if we need to do a specific customization, we can actually fire up a system that talks Arrowhead, and then it has access to all the data that we generate. And then we can send it somewhere else, or we can do what we need to do if it's processing or AI. So it allows us to be really, really, really fast, I would say. We don't need to reinvent the wheel every single time. So we have the service registry, we can register a service, and if it's there, we can use it. If it's not there, we just don't use it. So it's really, really flexible.
And what I think it's really strong about Arrowhead is that we enable the information in the network. So producers and consumers can attach to a network and produce information and consume information. So the important value for the business will be the information. Then we will solve integrations and technologies and product and so on, but start to discuss what's important for business. And I think that's information.
That's a very interesting kind of twist of how we actually phrase what this technology actually is doing. But you say, yes, information is the key to create value with Markus, for example, in Boliden.
Absolutely.
And that means that the information is the core, and that we can kind of massage all the technology data, and we can hide that away a little bit. And of course, then also produce that technology to a lower cost than building yet another monolith.
Yeah, I mean, for us, the sensors are just a tool that we need to collect the data. And all the wireless stuff and all the services, again, that's just an enabling tool. So information is the business value. The sensors, they are a necessary evil to actually to collect that information.
Now it seems that we have something in the chat. Just see whether I can get it up there. No, I don't see anything there. Yeah, well, they'll fix it. So there's something coming there. So yes, you have done a lot of things, but what's next step? I know that you get invitations from Australia, a big mining company, mining country. So could you tell us a little bit about what's your kind of future development plans related to the technology you have and how you can exploit that on the market?
Well, we're talking with a number of different customers, and like I said, basically each customer or each mine, they do have their own integration platform, either developed in-house or they bought some tool from Microsoft or IBM or whatever. So what we see is that we cannot be like a monolithic solution. So we need to have connectors to all these different platforms. And like I said, the number of connectors, the complexity increases with the square of the number of connectors. So for a small company, we can't have 40 people working just on one thing. We need to be very lean and fast. So by running a local cloud in the Arrowhead, I mean, we have a secure way of tapping into all the data. We can expose features for processing or AI or storage or whatnot as a service. And a really large benefit that we actually didn't cover, that's documentation. So of course, we can implement things, and that takes time, but document it takes maybe even longer sometimes.
And it's more boring, maybe.
It's definitely more boring
for a software guy. Yeah. I know. Yeah.
So by using Arrowhead, we can actually point to the official documentation. This is how our system works. This is how you integrate. This is how you access the data securely. We don't need to have that internally. We can actually point to a third party, which again saves a lot of time. So I think that's also another key. It's always forgotten. I almost forgot it now, but that's a big time saver in terms of not needing to do all that documentation.
We have a question from the chat here. So it's about if you have any thinking on kind of open standards like for example ISO 10303 or similar, and how these can then be connected to this type of technology.
I can comment I'm not an expert on these standards, but I can comment on standards general and what I think will be beneficial. And that's and I see, especially when it comes to integration closer to our production, there I think standards would help a lot, so that we have with our suppliers like Epiroc and others, that we can agree on the standards and the rules of the games, and not only in a one-to-one relationship, but across the board as well. And also because like Boliden is a multi-vendor company, so it's also in between suppliers as well. So.
Yeah, and I can say that I really like the framework because it supports different technologies and different standards. So we can actually run several standards in the same solution, and standards will change during time. So we need to be able to be future-proof, and the architecture actually supports to be future-proof. And the standards, of course, it's really good to align the company, suppliers, but it will be handled within the integrations. And you don't need to choose one standard for all of your integrations. You can have the best of breed. For this use case, this is the best technology and the best standard. Then you use that for your integration. And the Arrowhead framework actually help you to govern those standards together with each other.
Mm-hmm. The question here is also connected to digital twins. I don't know whether you have any comment to thinking on digital twins. Can that be also kind of exposed, used here? And
we have a 3D platform that we use to make twins of basically underground mines. And we have all the data that we collect from sensors or cameras or whatnot fed into that platform. But of course, we know that there is so many legacy devices. There are so many protocols. When we have OPC UA, that's not going to go away anytime soon. New IoT devices might use CoAP or MQTT, and all these protocols and data models and all that, they need to be able to coexist. Otherwise, there will be silos, which again, then we're back in the 80s. Mm-hmm. So I think the Arrowhead really helps to kind of hide some of that complexity. For example, we have some devices for the smart rock bolts that we do. They can live 13 years on a AA battery. They cannot run Arrowhead, they are too weak. But all the data that we collect from them is exposed as an Arrowhead service. But then we might have higher power devices, for example, the gateways, which has lots of horsepower, and they share data in exactly the same way. So as as a consuming system, they don't see any difference. So we can hide all that technical complexity of protocols and wireless technologies and encryption and all that, as it's kind of hidden behind the umbrella of Arrowhead.
Yeah, and I think it's really important with those systems, for example, digital twin, to perform integrations test and verify that your systems are compliant to each other and we have interoperability. So it's really a really important player.
We have another question here, and which asks how does this Arrowhead concept and tools correlates to these EU initiatives called Gaia X and Catena X, so open data spaces, so on. I don't know whether any one of you have some experience of that.
Not any deep.
No. From a technology viewpoint, I know that yes, Arrowhead is kind of technology-wise, we can talk. So we're interoperable. We can talk to each other. That has been demonstrated, so this is technically possible, but I haven't seen any larger demonstration of it. But from a technical viewpoint, yes, they are, well, put it like that, interoperable, but it hasn't been demonstrated, tested in any industrial larger context yet. And here we have someone saying, looking forward at the next years, what will be the research objectives and implementation plans for Arrowhead? I guess that you guys, your industry, you want to make money out of this. This is more maybe a question to me on this. And there are two major steps that we look forward to right now, where we hope to start projects this spring. And one is how can we efficiently build in AI technology into these type of solutions. And one of the key things there is can we create what the AI guys called an AI gym, so we can actually kind of massage the algorithms and the data streams and the learning, and then move that into operation, even at low power devices at the edge. So we don't need a big data center to run the AI algorithms, which is very often the case right now. This is one of the developments. The other development is looking at data model interoperability. So we are not looking at some of the big standards like this, ISO 10303, ISO 15926, BIM, and a couple of others. And how can we then translate between the data models of these standards? Meaning that the machines, let's say that take BIM, the buildings. They're using BIM, and that's a standard ISO, I think it's 12006. And then talking to a process industry, which very often relies on 15926. And these data models, they have standardized. They are not the same. Maybe similar, but they are clearly not the same. And can we translate between these and having machines to do that instead of having a software company actually writing a dedicated translator for just one specific solution, but that we can translate these things on a much faster, much cheaper, and more machine-oriented, machine-supported thing. And now we're getting more questions. Are you integrating with the W3C standards, ontologies, semantics, interoperability? And yes, we can see that many of these standards actually are now moving towards semantic representations. And there are already experiments made with semantic representation, how to use that to actually make smarter decisions related to orchestration, for example, reorchestration. There are already results on that. They have been tried in Norway, for example. So yes, this is a direction, and this semantics ontologies is very much what will be connected to how do we translate between various standard data models. And here comes next one. Worth mentioning that the MineIO product starting next month will contribute to implementing plans. Yeah, this is just yet another EU project. MineIO is a Horizon Europe project related to mining, and Arrowhead will be used there. There is at least, LTU is today engaged in 3 more EU projects. I know that other companies around, so there is probably something between at least 10, somewhere 10 to 20 EU projects who are kind of trying this out more and more. But I'd like to return to you guys and the future. You were talking about your future there, but Markus, you're running a big company, and how do you think about the future usage of this?
Yes, I do. I think, so as I said before, I believe in the architecture. Then there's quite a long way to actually get that for the area that I'm currently responsible for the IT in the mines. So that there's a number of challenges. But there are a lot of things going on, and we start a bit from all different angles. A lot of things happening in terms of testing and actually implementing. Bit more service-oriented architecture here, and but also from a strategy perspective, we have defined a strategy for how we want to handle mobile machine data, and we're also in combination with what do we expect them from our partners. How do we think this could work? And that's I think a good first step. We also have started a journey looking more into digitalization in general, and there's one part that's particular. There's many things that we want to do. That one part that's particularly interesting, and that is to map out what are the common things across and the complete area of Boliden mining side. What do we have to agree on together that we have to also do together? And architecture is a key piece of that. If we can agree on the architecture, a lot of other things can solve itself afterwards. So I hope that in this process we can come to these conclusions that this is important, and also take a joint decision, but also then actually do the work and set it then as a frame for the entire business area. So that's what I see, and then of course we have an active engineering community, and also in IT we have interested colleagues. So there's a lot of smaller projects and R&D also going.
Can you give an example? There is someone asking. Can you give a concrete example from Boliden on what where will you do your next trials?
So I think the related to mobile machines is a good part there. We see that we need a flexible architecture, and we also MQTT based. We're trying now to work with the integration from machines and machine directly from our machines, then into a place. Let's call it for the sake of simplicity, historian ++. but also then further along the way. And then we also talk about then to be able to distribute a bit more that data and not have like a vertical build-up that restricts us. So I think that's one area where we actually will have it also in production and build on that as well.
There is Kjell Bengtsson from Jotna. He's asking in 3 points, what are the most important topics in the Boliden IT strategy with respect to interoperability?
Interoperability, interesting. Interoperability on my table at the moment, I would say it's around. They're not super fancy advanced topics. It comes a lot down at the moment to basics. That's why I mentioned standards before. It's around having to know what to expect, for example, from our machine vendor partners, that what does the data mean, data validation topics. And it's a basics for all interoperability. If we don't do that, then this will be very, very difficult. Then the other piece is if we go more into the tactical part, what I want to do is get rid of what I call the monsters, and there we talk about rethinking monolithic architecture and splitting it up. But also there's a lot of topics around interoperability and data that we have to tackle alongside that. And then thirdly, I will have to mention asset master data management in general. That's a topic where well, there's a lot. We do that, of course, but we do it differently. And that's a huge area, and also a foundation that we have to build on.
May I turn to you, Fredrik? What's your next step in your business related in this context?
Actually, regarding the customer that we talk about, we're going to do this at the global scale. So it's actually building a site in China right now. So we'll try to do this architecture implementation there. So that's really challenging. And it's quite big.
Cool. Congratulations. Sounds that you got some very good business there.
Yeah, absolutely. It's really nice and fun. But of course, some challenges.
Then it's not in Luleå. It's on the other side of the globe.
Yep.
Will the use of technology actually here imply any kind of problems because you are on the other side of the globe?
Yeah, absolutely. It's different teams that will actually build the stuff and so on. So we need to have a lot of knowledge transfer and so on, and a lot of governance questions that need to be handled. But we'll try to handle those governance questions as well as the architecture regarding modeling the solution, and also how we specify the integrations. And one way is to be clear regarding our information exchange and use, for example, for technical developers, open API, async API that can handle a lot of technologies as well.
It's back to the same thing as Jens was talking about, adapters too, a lot of legacy stuff. So that's the OT that I mentioned at the beginning. But it's clear that we need to work with what's there.
Yeah.
There is a question for you, Jens, from the audience here, saying, Thingwave, can you elaborate on your partnership with Epiroc and how it came about?
Well, we started working together in the SMIG project, and I think, of course, us working with mining, we're looking for a partner to work with, and they were looking for expertise in IoT, so I think it's a perfect match.
Very good. We have a question from Milena here, and she asks, is it correct that Arrowhead is available as a standard service or similar, or is it a commercial solution we have to buy? And first of all, Eclipse Arrowhead is open source. So you can find the code on GitHub, and it's free to use under the Eclipse license version 2 which we made some analysis a few years ago, so found out this is probably the most industry friendly, the commercial friendly license that we can find with a strong governance body behind, which is the Eclipse Foundation. So it's available, it's open source, it's free of charge, and we start to build this commercial ecosystem together with a number of companies like Sinetiq and Thingwave here to build that. But you may comment on what do you think about this joining together with a number of other, there is whatever, between 15, 20 companies around Europe right now, trying to see how can you develop Eclipse Arrowhead together, and how can you then actually earn money on it as well? But Fredrik, do you want to comment on this?
Yeah, actually, we see it as a really strong community, and we feel that the world are facing how do we do integrations better. Really much, because it's really strong and future-proof. And of course, our customer have some production requirement and industrial requirements that we need to adapt to. So at our case, we have actually their customer implementation of the Arrowhead framework. So, but there we aim to enable some product maturity for the community that will be open source. So, yeah.
Cool. Jens, any from your side?
We see our role more into feeding an Arrowhead system with data. We don't do any integration, and we call the experts here. But of course, adding more open source solutions, we contribute to the open source code base, improving, adding features, and so on. Of course, some internal we keep as closed source because that's part of our IPR. But we see the data exchange as being the key. So, for example, if we have a system integrator, we have us generating data. If we would have a third party consuming and analyzing data, of course, then it's a perfect way of actually sharing data without doing custom APIs all the time, or giving it to the mine so they can have access to the raw data if they want to.
Markus and Boliden, open source is sometimes regarded as, we don't trust that, but everyone uses Linux and that's the most open source. But what's your view from a large company about having such technology? So maybe becoming critical operational technology based on open source.
I would say open source is not open source all the time. So there's differences in there as well, which we also learned and analyzed. But I think the approach is good, and I think there's a place as well. But of course, it's also a change management aspect of it, and maybe training as well. But I think it's the right way. It needs the commercial ecosystem around it to support it, and I think what has been built with the chains that enable then a customer like us to have a ready-made solution is a good way.
As kind of a final question to each of you, what would you like to see more out of the Eclipse Arrowhead as technology, or maybe other support around it? But I don't know. Who want to start? Fredrik?
Yeah, I can start. I think the most important for us is the architecture. So keep it independent and a strong player. So, and we feel that it's future-proof. It can handle all technologies. So that one we really like. So keep it as is, but start to spread the word more, that it's really good to use. Then we see we need, maybe our customer had a lot of requirements regarding products in their environment, and get those requirements into the solutions. So we can have a reference implementation that we feel that we directly can provide to our customers.
But then I hope you are happy to convey or ask Scania to convey these requirements.
Absolutely, we will do that. Yes.
Excellent. Jens?
That's a good question. I think as more and more partners are joining, we will see more and more systems available that we can start to use. And of course, since they are open source, we can actually inspect the source code to see that it's secure and safe. There is no hidden things there, which is good. Also, some of the things that we do when we do, for example, customization, since that's a very small system that we integrate with our core platform, we can actually push that one, or give it to the customer as source code. We don't want to release our own source code to everyone, but of course we can do these small adapters. They can use them as they want, and then they can reuse them with other third-party vendors. So I think it all adds up when it comes to sharing both code and examples and so on.
You touch on security here, and that's an interesting point. And I know that this is one of the reasons why we did choose Eclipse Foundation to be the kind of open source organization. And all the open source code that you can find at GitHub today is released is actually security checked by Eclipse Foundation and a number of tools that they have to do that. And we do get security reports from them now and then. So we are now into fixing the second of these security reports since we became Eclipse Arrowhead. So there will be yet another 4.6.1 release rather soon, when Bosch has created one of the core systems that's in the release. And they, for example, are just now struggling. I think they solved it earlier on today, basically. But so there is an update schema where we can take care of security vulnerabilities that is found throughout the world.
I think one thing that would be really beneficial, because we had this question multiple times. So we might have a large enterprise. So when we come in there, they ask us, okay, which firewall do you use? Which version of Linux? Which version of that? Which software does handle different parts? So actually having some sort of certificate from the Eclipse that we're using 4.4.5, for example. And that one has been verified by this organization, this date, and so on, and actually show that and say, yes, we are relying on this software, which has been triple checked by an independent party. That would actually be very good from a sales point of view.
This documentation is there.
Yeah.
So we can talk about that later on, so you can find it.
And actually that one is one of the requirements from our customer.
Yeah,
so,
exactly.
That's
exactly.
nice.
So have it like one page, like a certificate. Yes, we are relying on this. Would be very good.
Yeah, from my perspective, I think there's two things. One is what you mentioned, the architecture. I think that's something that's worthwhile pushing more, because that's the key foundation. I think that would be great to see more of that. The other thing is around, and I thought about it a lot as part of the Area Tools project as well, is like how can we move from testing and having small scale implementations then to having setting standard for a company like you on the way for Scania. And I haven't figured it out, and it's probably different from company to company as well. But my belief is that it has to be tied to a business need and has to solve a problem, and then you can come with a solution as it's packaged around the right technology that enables you to do that. That's one way. So I think that talking about verticals and like you do, focusing on the mining industry and solving a problem that we have in the mining industry is I think the right way, instead of having the broad possibilities, because then you don't know what to do with it.
Very good. I think we have a final question from the audience here. And it says, how good aligned are Eclipse Arrowhead with the Industry 4.0 and the asset administration shell and other surrounding standards, like the said here IDTA, or I guess it's IDSA, but never mind, it's the Industrial Data Space Association. Maybe I should answer this, since I know that already, I think it's 3 years ago, that we made this interoperability with the first implementations of the asset administration shell made by Fraunhofer in Kaiserslautern. This is where the core of that development is going on. So yes, Arrowhead is clearly interoperable with the core implementations of the asset administration shell. And it's actually the asset administration shell people who have demonstrated that that's the case, which I think is rather cool. And as I said, we said before with the Gaia X and Catena X and so on, which are very similar to the industrial data spaces. Yes, technology-wise, we are interoperable, but in that case, we haven't made any real larger demonstration. But for the asset administration shell, that interoperability is actually part of the current release of Eclipse Arrowhead. So you can find how that is done there. That's there. I think now that we are at 15:00, I would like to say thank you very much to Markus Frank from Boliden, Fredrik Blomstedt from Sinetiq, and Jens Eliasson from Thingwave. And thank you very much to you guys who have been listening to this. And I hope that we now can then get the contact points onto the screen there, who we are and where you can find more information. So here are some email addresses and some web pages where you can go and have a further look on this. Don't hesitate to contact those of us that have been here. So thanks a lot for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you.